Tjena, det är mig podcasterska Katarina på Måsmarkanalen och idag fortsätter vi kämpa oss svenska och vi ska prata om sådan sak som dessa, denna, detta eller hur använder man de här ord. Men innan vi börjar, du behöver slå på knappen prenumerera för att vi träffas i andra eller följande avsnitt på den här kanalen. So, in Swedish language, there are actually more words to determine such English words as this, that, those, and these. And we will start from word this, and we will go one by one to know which are the alternatives of using these words in Swedish language. So the situation looks like this. In Swedish language, there are more ways to say this, that, these, those than in English language, and we need to understand how to use them, what are the rules, and in which cases we will say DESSA, and in which cases we are going to say de här. But we take everything step by step. So first thing that I need to remind you, it is that in Swedish language there are two types of the nouns. They can be en-ord and they can be et-ord. And it's very crucial when you're learning the new words, you will learn straight away the noun together with the article. Thing number one. Thing number two. When we want to say, let's start from this. For example, this cat, or this dog, or any other word that you want to say. For translating this, you will use pronoun den. Then you will use word här, which will identify that something is nearby you, so it's here. And after den här, we will use the noun, en noun, in definite form of the noun. And if you didn't understand why we use den, I will explain one more time. So den, we chose to use den because we have en ord. For example, en katt, or en hund, or en väg, and so on. So this cat I will translate as den här katten. If you feel that you are not, or you're not very stable in your knowledge how to create definite form for singular and plural forms, I highly recommend you to go by the link in the corner and check the rules, the basic rules, how to create definite form for singulars or plural forms of the noun. So, if I want to say this cat, I will say den här katten. But if I want to say this house, for example, and the house is et word, it will be ett hus. Then, instead of saying den här, I will say det här, because I have ett hus, and pronoun den will be changed into det. So, det här huset. And again, the rule stays the same. After den här or det här, we will use definite form of the noun. Now, there are two more, or actually one way, but since we have en-ord and et-ord, there will be two more words that can exchange these structures, den här or det här. So, instead of saying den här katten, or instead of saying den här, we can say denna. But there is the problem, which calls indefinite form of the noun. So, if we say denna, we will use indefinite form of the noun. For example, denna katt, denna hund, denna väg. So, either you say den här katten, or you're saying denna katt. And it's very, very crucial to remember that the word denna takes all the articles, all the definite forms to itself, and the noun katt, for example, stays in natural form of the noun. The same thing happens with it words when we want to say, for example, det här huset. And of course, there is the word, instead of denna, for en ord, we will have detta. And rule stays the same. We will say detta hus. Or if we don't want to say detta hus, we can still use det här huset. But, of course, there are always but. This form, denna, detta, and one more that we will discuss just in a couple seconds, are used in formal speaking or formal writing or in literature. So in your daily life, you will preferably use den här, det där, and the other forms of the phrases, how to say these. So if we want to say, for example, these plural objects, we don't care, is it en or et ord in plural form, unless of course we need to know how to create plural form for en and et. By the way, I also have video devoted to this, so you just go by the link in the corner. And plus, to plural form, we need to use definite form of this noun in plural, of course. So, if I want to say these cats, I will say dom. So I will use pronoun dom, they. Then I will say här, so they are close to me, that's why I use here, so dom här. And then I use, for example, cats in plural definite form, katterna. De här katterna. Or, for example, these houses. De här husen. And you can practice all these rules that we are discussing at this channel easily in your daily life, because we have so many objects around us. Just remember the rule, learn the word, and learn the word, not only just sitting and repeating it a lot of times, but try to create your own example. And of course, now you can practice how to say these or these objects in Swedish language. And once again, you can say de här katterna or de här husen, but there is one more way to say these in Swedish language with using of the word DESSA. And the rule stays the same as we discussed about DENNA and DETTA. So after DESSA, we will use just plural obestämt or indefinite form of the not subject but noun. For example, dessa katter or dessa hus. So once again, we can say den här katten or denna katt. We can say det här huset or detta hus. We can say de här katterna or dessa katter. And the last we can say de här husen or we say dessa hus. I hope that you start getting a little bit more clear situation about these or these in Swedish language. And the next thing that we need to cover today is how to say that or those objects in Swedish language. So, the easy way, and I can say that that and those is way more easy than the previous case, because we will have also some alternatives, but they will have the same form of the noun after itself. So, for saying in Swedish language, that cat that is somewhere not beside me, but for example in the other on the opposite street, for example, I will say den because we have en katt, but instead of saying här, I will say där because it's there. So I will say den där, and I will use katten because I need definite form of the noun after this phrase. So den där katten. And if I want to say that house, I will say the same form, but instead of saying den, I will use det because you know that we have ert hus. So we will say det där huset. And we have alternative how to say the same thing. And for saying this alternative, we need to take away the word där and say just den katten, det huset. And it's very crucial not to mix up such thing as den här katten and den katten, because den här katten, it is the cat that is here nearby you, and den katten, it is that cat that is sitting on the opposite street from you. So just remember about that. And the same about house. Det här huset, it is the house that is nearby you, and det huset, it is that one that you look at the opposite street, for example. And we have the same rule, but about plural. So if we want to say that I look at those cats or those houses, I will use, instead of that we had den där or det där, I will use dom because we need pronoun that will identify plural form of the noun. So we will say de där katterna or de där husen. Very crucial that if we want to say the alternative, we have everything in each places. So we have dom or den or det and noun in plural definite form. So we will say de där husen or de husen. De där katterna or de katterna. Okej. Så det var den informationen som jag ville berätta till dig idag. Och jag hoppas att du har fått lite bättre situation med sådana ord i svenska språket som this, these, those and that. Och den sista sak som jag kommer att säga är att du vet mer än du tror. Det var mig, podcasterska Katarina på Mosmar-kanalen. Vi hörs eller ses jättesnabbt.